Welcome to the news this week on Spectrum Television, a recap of major stories within the week. I am Rachel David White, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. President Buhari seeks quick passage of money laundering terrorism bills. Federal government opens dialogue with abductors of Kaduna-Abuja train passengers as families warn against Well, sorry for the break in transmission. Welcome back to the news this week on Spectrum Television, a recap of major stories within the week. I am Rachel David White, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. President Buhari seeks quick passage of money laundering terrorism bills. Federal government opens dialogue with abductors of Kaduna-Abuja train passengers as families warn against resumption of services. Russia hits Kyiv missile plant after losing iconic warship. The details of these stories and more in a moment. We begin with a report that the Senate has received the Money Laundering and Terrorism Prevention Bill transmitted by President Muhammadu Buhari for expeditious consideration and passage. The bills were accompanied by a letter read at the start of a plenary by the Senate President Ahmed Lawan. President Buhari said the request for passage of both bills was pursuant to the provisions of Section 58, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended. He explained that the deficiencies in the country's anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism administration had made it imperative for the passage of both bills. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to meet with the service chiefs next Tuesday. The meeting comes amid the increased security challenges in the country. The president had earlier presided over a meeting of the Council of State at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, today. The meeting was attended by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, National Security Advisor Babagana Mungunu, and the Chief of Staff to President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Former heads of state physically in attendance were Abdul Salami Abubakar, Goodluck Jonathan, and Yakubu Gowon, while others attended the meeting virtually from their various locations. The state governors in attendance were Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State, Bello Matawale of Zamfara State, and Nasser El Rufai of Kaduna State, with some others attending virtually. In the meantime, President Buhari has described the killings in Plateau State as heinous and vowed that sponsors and perpetrators of the crimes will be made to face justice. The president's disapproval for the incident was contained in a statement by his spokesman, Garba Shehu. President Buhari ordered law enforcement agencies to work with the government of the state to bring the situation under control and take steps to quickly bring the culprits to justice. The president asked the peace should be returned at all costs to the state and the entire country as a matter of priority. In Plateau State, Governor Simon Lalong has vowed to improve security at its borders following incessant attacks in some communities in Kanam, Wasay, and Bassa local government areas. The governor made the promise during his interface with key stakeholders and community members of Kanam local government area at the council's headquarters in Dengi. He assured them that efforts were being made to deploy security agencies to forestall further attacks in the area. The federal government opened a channel of discussion with terrorists who abducted passengers on a Kaduna-Abuja bound train in March 2022. Speaking with journalists in Kaduna, relatives and friends of the abducted passengers said they have been assured by the government that a channel of discussion with the terrorists had been opened. 9 days after the attack, the terrorists reportedly released the managing director of the Bank of Agriculture, Alwan Hassan, after an alleged 10 million naira ransom. It could be recalled that the bandits had threatened to kill all the victims if the federal government failed to negotiate with them. Away from that, Managing Director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Fidet Okira, has announced that Nigerians intending to travel by rail should get their national identity numbers ready, as it would be a requirement from May 2022. Okira said in Abuja that the NIN would be needed to enhance the profiling of passengers to ensure the safety and security of rail users. He said the Abuja-Kaduna train service will resume as soon as possible, with additional security measures in place. It could be recalled that the corporation had suspended the Abuja-Kaduna route following a March 28 attack by assailants, who injured passengers and kidnapped some. Akira said the security agencies were working tirelessly to rescue and release all abductees, noting that 362 passengers and 20 crew members were aboard the train when it was plundered. On the legislative matters, the National Assembly has passed amendments to the 2022 Appropriation Act and 2022 Fiscal Framework. The document raised the deficit in the federal government's budget by 965.42 billion naira to 7.35 trillion naira. In their chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives considered and adopted reports on the amendment bills at plenary based on request by President Muhammadu Buhari. Provision for federally funded upstream projects being implemented was reportedly cut by 200 billion naira from 352.8 billion naira, while the projection for federal government independent revenue was raised by 400 billion naira. Still on the legislative matters, the Senate has passed the Nigerian Peace Corps Establishment Bill 2020. Following the consideration of a report by the Committee on Interior, the bill was sponsored by Senator Ali Ndume, representing Borno South. Senator Suleiman Omara, in a presentation on behalf of the chairman of the committee, Kashim Shatima, said the panel consolidated the Nigerian Peace Corps Bill and National Unity Corps Bill into one for ease of advancing its work. He said the Nigerian Peace Corps bill sought to empower, develop, and provide gainful employment for the youth, facilitate peace, volunteerism, community services, neighborhood watch, and nation building. He explained that the Corps would have the responsibility of training the youth to advance the cause of peace building and conflict transformation through peace education, mediation, and conflict resolution among warring groups and communities in Nigeria. Elsewhere, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has formally briefed the Senate All Progressives Congress (APC) caucus over his presidential ambition and sought their support. The briefing, which was part of Osinbajo's consultations with critical stakeholders, was held over the iftar dinner at his official residence at the Aguda House within the presidential villa, Abuja. The meeting was held behind closed doors, but the president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, who led the APC senators to the villa, told reporters that what actually transpired. Lawan said the vice president told them that he has expressed his interest and that he wanted to consult with the Senate APC caucus. In a separate development, the Minister of Interior, Ralph Aregbesola, says the process of issuing the Nigerian passport bill will be fully digitalized before the end of 2022. Aregbesola stated this during a commencement of a two-day capacity building workshop organized for passport control officers from across the country and foreign offices. He said the workshop was to ensure effective and efficient service delivery to maximize the gains of the passport reforms by the federal government. The minister said the decision was to cut off any form of contact between applicants and immigration officers, which gives rise to corruption in the process. He added that the maximum period for fresh passport applications was now 6 weeks, while passport renewal would no longer be more than 3 weeks. In another development, the federal government is planning to hold the national population census in April 2023, 1 month after the general elections scheduled for February and March. The Director General of Nigeria Population Commission, Nasera Issa Kwara, confirmed this to State House correspondent after the Council of State meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, noting that the Commission would hold a pilot census in June after the political primaries. Issa Kwara said it would deploy high-grade technology during the exercise. He observed that the current data in use by the country were obsolete projections and that the census would provide more accurate data for national planning. Away from that, Director General and Chief Executive Officer, National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, Dr. Dan Azumi Ibrahim, says the federal government, through Executive Order 5, has restricted the issuance of visas to certain foreign professionals. Ibrahim, who spoke during a media chat on the public presentation of indigenous software for the implementation of Executive Order 5, added that only foreign professionals with skills lacking in Nigeria would get visa approval from the Ministry of Interior. It could be recalled that Executive Order 5 was signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari on February 2, 2018, to promote local content in public procurement. Meanwhile, the Council of State, led by President Muhammadu Buhari, has approved the pardon of 159 convicts, including a former governor of Plateau State, Joshua Dariye, who was imprisoned for stealing 1.16 billion naira, and ex-governor Jolly Nyame of Taraba State, who was imprisoned for stealing 1.16 and 1.6 billion naira. Confirming Dariye's pardon, Director of Press and Public Affairs, Government House, Dr. Macham Makut, said Governor Simon Lalong was at the Council of State meeting, where Dariye was granted state pardon, held Nyame's pardon in a statement, and Speaker of Taraba State Assembly, Professor Joseph Kunini, said the state was appreciative of the pardon. Meanwhile, federal government has reaffirmed support to the renegotiation of welfare package for university workers in line with current realities. Minister of Labour and Employment Chris Ngige stated this during a meeting with members of the 2009 Federal Government and University-Based Unions Renegotiation Committee. Ngige, who noted that government was not pleased with the approach being used by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, to pursue its demands, pleaded with the committee to ensure that it concludes its assignment within 6 weeks as provided in the Memorandum of Action with the unions. Recall that ASU embarked on a 1-month warning strike on February 14th and extended it by another 2 months over the alleged failure of the government to address their demands. In a separate development, Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has given the federal government 21-day ultimatum to resolve the issue with members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities (ASU), Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions (NASU), Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, and National Association of Academic Technologists. This was contained in a communique jointly signed by the NLC President Ayuba Waba and the Congress General Secretary Emmanuel Uboja. NLC, which frowned at government's failure to honor its 2009 renegotiated agreement, noted that after the ultimatum expires, it will decide on the next line of action if the government failed to resolve the impasse. The group therefore called on the federal government to immediately set up a high-powered panel constituted of members with requisite mandates to resolve within 21 days. The foregoing issue militating against industrial harmony in Nigeria's university system. Still to come in the news, Nigerian inflation rate hits high. Just stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. On judiciary matters, a three-man panel of the Court of Appeal, Lagos Division, led by Justice Peter Afem, has upheld the appeal of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and dismissed the ruling of a federal high court in Lagos in the case involving a former executive director project, Niger Delta Development Commission, Toyo Omasili. Omasili is facing prosecution alongside Francis Momo and two other companies on the amended 45-count charge bordering on conspiracy and money laundering to the tune of 3.6 billion naira. In a judgment delivered by Justice Festus Obunya, the court set aside the ruling of the lower court on November 11, 2020, discharging the respondent of the money laundering charges and urged Omasili to enter into his defense accordingly on the same count. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court in Abuja has affirmed the 6-year imprisonment imposed on a former federal director of pensions, John Yusuf, for misappropriation of Bill 22.9 billion naira police pensions fund. The Apex Court also ordered Yusuf to refund the 22.9 billion naira to the federal government's covers. It could be recalled that Yakubu was imprisoned in 2018 by the Abuja Court of Appeal for defrauding. On electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has suspended the continuous voter registration exercise in Hart Obioma local government area of Imo State. A statement signed by INEC National Commissioner Festus Okoye explained that the decision was taken after an INEC staff was shot dead by gunmen. According to Okoye, the staff, Mwokorie Anthony, was shot dead at Nkwo Ihite in Amakohia ward of the area. Reports say two other staffs involved in the exercise at the polling unit are also missing. Elsewhere, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has released the results of the 2022 mock Unified Tertiary Matriculations examination conducted on April 9th. JAM made this known in the weekly bulletin of the Office of its Registrar in Abuja. The board advised candidates who sought for the examination to visit www.jam.gov.ng and click on 2022 mock result checking and input their UTME registration number to access their result. Reports say no less than 175,000 candidates sat for the examination across JAM's 757 centers nationwide. To financial crime now, where the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, will rearraign the former National Publicity Secretary of People's Democratic Party, PDP, Olisa Meto. Meta will be rearraigned on May 30th on allegation bordering on 400 million naira fraud. He is expected to be rearraigned before Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court, Abuja. Back here, Akwa Ibom State Governor Domimano has continued his consultation of strategic stakeholders in furtherance of his presidential bid by visiting two former heads of state, retired General Ibrahim Babangida and Federal General Abdul Salami Abubakar in Mina. Speaking during the visit, the governor intimated the elder statesman of his vision for a better Nigeria, defined by a revamped economy, security and lives and properties, and durable infrastructure. On their part, both former leaders congratulated Emmanuel for his courage in stepping into the ring at the national stage and commended the excellent manner he administered Akwa Ibom State. They assured him of their blessings, advice, and prayers. Meanwhile, Governor Emmanuel has consulted the Senate and House of Representatives over his presidential ambition, thus receiving a nod of members of the PDP caucus in both chambers for his performance in office for the past nearly 7 years. In separate consultations in Abuja, Governor Emmanuel told the federal lawmakers that his decision to throw his heart into the ring came after ordinary Nigerians responding to the call by media organizations. The Brekete Family Human Rights Radio and TV had urged him to run during his January 7, 2022 appearance on the program. He said several Nigerians who listened to the media interview contributed money and helped purchase the presidential nomination forms, urging him to run. Governor Emmanuel told the lawmakers that he decided to run because he believes in his capacity to make Nigeria safe, peaceful, attract investment, and become economically vibrant. At the meeting with the PDP Senate caucus at the residence of Minority Leader Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe, Governor Emmanuel was appreciated for the piece of development he has brought to Akwa Ibom through industrialization and infrastructural development. Subsequently, Governor Emmanuel was asked to take a bow while the lawmakers applauded him. The governor was accompanied by several Akwa Ibom PDP stakeholders who had earlier in the day accompanied the preferred candidate for the state's governorship race, Pastor Omoino, to submit his nomination forms at the PDP National Secretariat. Still in Akwa Ibom State Governor Dom Emmanuel has called on churches to intensify prayers for the country to enable it surmount its challenges. Governor Emmanuel, who met the call at a Good Friday church service at the Akwa Ibom Church Number 2 at Back Road, Uyo, noted that the challenges facing the country had negative impact on all facets of the society. The governor, who thanked the church in the state for their prayers and support to his administration, also charged the church to play their roles in the society. He also charged the church to continue to pray for the sustenance of the relative peace currently being enjoyed in the area and the completion agenda of his administration. Governor Emmanuel again enjoined the church to pray for peaceful elections in Nigeria in 2023 and also charged Christians faithful to get their voter cards to enable them exercise their franchise in the 2023 general elections. Earlier in a sermon, the resident pastor of the church, Reverend Donald Ebo, had charged Christians to acknowledge their sins and repent to be redeemed by sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross. The Good Friday service also featured praise and worship and thanksgiving to God for the gift of the Lord Jesus Christ for the redemption of mankind. As Christians mark the 2022 Easter celebration, Akwa Ibomite have commiserated the season and has said it was a time to remember the love of Jesus Christ towards man and his selfless sacrifice for humanity. Those who spoke with Spectrum Television lamented that the season was marred by the high cost of living and the struggle for citizens' survival. They used the opportunity to call on public office holders and the entire citizenry to emulate the love of Christ by contributing their quota to help reduce the effect of the harsh economic realities.
Memory of him, whereas others did not. And so in the church and during liturgy, especially in the Catholic Church, there are special things like it has to do with love and service, especially on Holy Thursday, the washing of the feet, of which Jesus Christ portrayed love and service. On Good Friday, Jesus Christ gave himself up, the body and the blood, for the sake of the salvation of mankind. And Holy Saturday, we now discuss with him about the resurrection, of which he resurrected through the power of his Father, our God. And then on Easter Sunday, we celebrate the victory over death. That is most special about the Easter preparation.
Easter is the day we remember Christ when he died for us and everything he went through for us.
Easter means the sacrifice of Christ because of our sin. Although Jesus did not do anything, but because of our sin, he decided to die. So actually, that is why Christians said it. But the only problem that we're having in today's world is that it does not allow Christians to be happy because of the high cost of things.
The essence of the season is to reflect on the purpose of Jesus came to the world, and that this is time for our leadership today. Jesus came as a leader and he gave his people. So the leadership of today should find ways of alleviating poverty, find ways of adding value to humanity.
Away from that, former Guinean Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassori and 3 ex-cabinet members are due to face embezzlement charges before the court in Conakry following their arrest last week. Kassori, former Defense Minister Mohamed Dan, ex-Environment Minister Oye Golivogu and former Hydrocarbons Minister Zakaria Coulibaly will appeal at the Court of Reparation of Economic and Financial Offences, CRIF, today. Reports say that they were detained on Wednesday last week on charges of embezzling public funds after 3 days of questioning. Recall that Kasari served as Prime Minister from 2018 until President Alpha Conde was overthrown in the military coup last September. In Africa, Somalia's newly elected members of parliament have been sworn in after a long delayed and chaotic voting process that was marred by a power struggle between the president and his prime minister. Almost 300 parliamentarians took the oath of office in a ceremony inside a heavily guarded airport zone in the capital, Mogadishu. Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Probe said at the ceremony that the country had faced challenges and endured attempts to stop it from reacting and reaching the occasions, but that he was happy to witness the event. Elsewhere, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has visited the coastal province of KwaZulu-Natal, where key roads are shut and mudslides have reportedly destroyed homes. The incident followed prolonged rains. KwaZulu-Natal's Health Minister, Namagugu Simelane, said death toll from the floods have climbed to more than 250, with the rain expected to weaken that day. Ramaphosa said he would assess the response of government and civil societies and offer support to affected communities. Elsewhere, United States will grant temporary deportation relief and work permit to Cameroonians living in America. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said the decision was due to the ongoing conflict between government forces and armed separatists in Cameroon. It noted that the decision will apply to Cameroonians residing in the United States and last a period of 18 months. According to the department, an estimated 12,000 Cameroonians will be eligible for the status. President Joe Biden has championed the Tertiary and Temporary Protected Status Program, which grants immigrants who cannot return to their countries safely due to extraordinary circumstances the ability to stay and work in the United States. On the foreign scene, Russia says it has hit a plant making anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles outside the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. This came hours after it admitted that the Moskva warship had sunk following an explosion on Wednesday. It could be recalled that Ukraine had said it hit the Russian cruiser in the Black Sea with missiles, while Russia's side said a fire on board had caused the sinking. Russia's defense ministry said attacks on Kyiv would be intensified if Ukraine targeted Russian territory. In the meantime, Russia has lifted its protection of diplomatic immunity from arrest and other types of prosecution of 18 members of the European Union delegation in Russia. The foreign ministry said the staff members would have to leave the territory of the Russian Federation in the near future. Responding, the EU said it's deplored what it called the unjustified baseless order, adding that there were no grounds for the decision by the Russian authorities beyond being a pure retaliatory step. Meanwhile, dozens of Russian diplomats have been expelled by EU countries over the past month. Meanwhile, Germany has officially confiscated the world's largest super yacht owned by Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanov as part of sanctions against Moscow following the outbreak of war in Ukraine. According to Forbes magazine, the 156-meter-long Dilbar has an estimated value of $600 million. Reports say German customs had been eyeing the superyacht for several weeks, but could not formally seize it earlier due to a legal imbroglio over its ownership. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities have continued to discover mud bodies around the capital, Kyiv, more than 1 week after Russian troops left the area to concentrate on East Ukraine. Kyiv Region Police Chief Andriy Netov told a briefing that 900 deceased civilians had been found and transferred to forensic experts, Nebitov, and said more than 350 other bodies were retrieved from Bucha, where evidence of atrocities has led to accusations of war crimes against Russian troops, denied by Moscow. The police chief added that the removal of rubble in Borodyanka and Makarov was still ongoing and that there will still be bodies of dead people under the rubble. He alleged that those killed were civilians and had nothing to do with military formations. Still on the foreign scene, the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan, who has been visiting the Ukrainian town of Bucha, said the country was a crime scene. He told reporters that there were reasonable grounds to believe that crimes within the jurisdiction of a court were being committed. Khan said it was important to pierce the fog of war to get the truth through independent and impartial investigation. He added that an International Criminal Court forensic team was to begin work in the town. Bucha is said to have been the scene of hundreds of civilian killings, which Ukraine has blamed on the Russian forces, which occupied it for weeks. But Russia has denied responsibility for the deaths. On the foreign scene again, at least 16 people have been injured in a shooting at a subway station in Brooklyn, New York. People have reportedly been warned to stay away from the area near 36th Street station in the Sunset Park neighborhood. First responders said they had found unexploded devices at the scene. In a statement, the New York Police Department said there were no active explosive devices at that time. Officials said firefighters had responded to reports of smoke at the station and found multiple people injured. The suspected attacker had reportedly fled the scene, with witnesses describing a man in an orange construction vest and gas mask, while U.S. President Joe Biden has been briefed on the situation. Again, on the foreign scene, United Kingdom's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been fined by the police for attending a birthday party thrown for him during a COVID lockdown. The Prime Minister confirmed that he had paid the fixed penalty notice for going to the hour-long gathering in the Cabinet Room on June 19, 2020. According to the report, Chancellor Rishi Sunak has also been fined, while the Prime Minister's wife, Carrie Johnson, confirmed she had paid the fixed penalty notice relating to the same event. Johnson apologized but said he would not resign over the incident. In business, Nigeria's annual inflation rate, the percentage increase or decrease in prices during a specified period, rose to 15.92% in March of 2022 from 15.70% in February, the fastest rise in consumer prices since last October. According to the recent Consumer Price Index report released by the National Bureau of Statistics, the prices of diesel, which is used to power most business, has more than doubled, while analysts said the impact on the war in Ukraine could be felt in the coming weeks. Africa's first digital currency, e-Naira, has been ranked as #1 global retail central bank digital coin, CBDC, and the app downloads increased to 756,000 from 700,000 seen in December 2021. According to the World Bank and PwC stablecoin overview, over 35,000 transactions have been conducted on the e-Naira platform. Meanwhile, the IMF has warned about the potential expansion of the use of e-Naira for cross-border fund transfers, and that agency bank networks could lead to new money laundering and terrorism financing risk. Vanguard Group, an asset manager, has become the largest stakeholder in Twitter, displacing the world's richest man, Elon Musk, from the position. According to the EU Securities and Exchange Commission document of April 8, Vanguard Group increased its stake from 8.4%, worth 67.2 million shares, to 10.3%, worth 82.4 million shares. This is reportedly higher than the 9.1% shares bought by Musk on March 14th, with Vanguard Group's total investment value raised to $3.71 billion against Musk's $3.29 billion. Still to come in the news, in health, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC is calling on all people to join in efforts. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. In health, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC is calling on all people to join in efforts to reduce the risk of Lassa fever infection and spread in Nigerian communities. The agency advised the people to eliminate rats in homes and communities using rat traps. It also asked Nigerians to block all holes in their houses to prevent the entry of rats. Still in health, the federal government has called on Nigerians to complete their COVID-19 vaccine doses for full protection. Nigeria Center for Disease Control made the call in a Facebook post to respond. The World Health Organization had received their first dose of Moderna AstraZeneca or Pfizer vaccine. It told such individuals to check the due date and get their second dose. The health body encouraged the people to take responsibility and embrace the vaccination to check the spread of the coronavirus. In sports, Nigeria winger Alex Iwobi has won Everton Goal of the Month award for March. Iwobi's dramatic 99th minute winner against Newcastle United was voted as the #1 for the month by Evertonians. The 25-year-old calmly slaughtered home after being played in a Dominic Calvert-Lewin to send Goodison Park into ruptures and secure a vital 3-point the 10-man Toffees. Iwobi beats Claire Emsleo and Solomon Rondon to the prize. Meanwhile, the former Arsenal star has scored 2 goals in 22 league appearances for the Merseyside this season. Following the recommendation of its Technical and Development Subcommittee, the Executive Committee of the Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, has approved the appointment of Salisu Yusuf as the head coach of the Super Eagles B, otherwise known as Chan team, as well as the U23 Olympics team. Yusuf will work with Kennedy Boboye, assistant coach, Fatai Osho, assistant coach, Abubakar Bala Mohammed, assistant coach, Fidelis Kochuku, assistant coach, Ebobotise Owaja Morere, match analyst, and Ike Sharumo, goalkeepers, trainer, and Suleiman Schwaibu, goalkeepers, trainer too. The NFF also stated that a new head coach for the Super Eagles will be announced and officially unveiled once the processes for his engagement and contract signing are concluded. President of the Nigeria Football Federation and member of the FIFA Council, Amaju Melvin Pinnick, has been appointed into a new role within the World Football Governing Body's Working Group. In a letter dated 11th April and signed by Veron Mosengo Omba, General Secretary of the Confederation of African Football, the NFF boss was informed that he has been nominated by the President of CAF, Dr. Joseph Mosepe, to be part of a newly established working group on normalization committees. The CAF General Secretary wrote further, this joint working group, to be led by FIFA, will analyze the applicable legal framework and the governance structure, mandate and mission of normalization committees, and make suggestions to the FIFA Council accordingly. The CAF General Secretary wrote further, this point working group to be led by FIFA will analyze the applicable legal framework and the governance structure, mandate and mission of normalization committee, and make suggestions to the FIFA councils accordingly. On our entertainment news, Oprah Winfrey has lined up a new special at Netflix, this time with Emmy winner Viola Davis. The 48-minute episode will see Davis open up with Winfrey about her new memoir, Finding Me. Davis will share memories of her childhood marked with unimaginable poverty, disturbing abuse, and all the things that cost you pain. The 48-minute special is set to cover both the good and bad of the much-celebrated actress's life, from her childhood growing up in extreme poverty to winning an Oscar, discussing how giving up hope that the past could be different has brought her peace, forgiveness, and a sense of self. Also, DJ Khaled received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in a ceremony attended by previous collaborators Jay-Z, Diddy, and Fat Joe. As Fox 11 Los Angeles point out, Khaled's star is the 2719th scene in completion of a Walk of Fame in 1961. Khaled also got an extra long handshake from Jay-Z to mark the occasion.
God, I love you. I appreciate you. And we're going to keep going. I want to thank my wife and my 2 beautiful boys. Asad, you good? Alam, you good? You know we the biggest, right? You know that, right? I love you. Without my kids and my wife, man, I love them so much. And I just want to take time to big them up and tell them how much I love you. Nicole, I appreciate you, you know, not only dealing with me, but just everyday life, taking care of our kids. I'm not a regular type of person. I'm a different type of. I'm a different type of. Look, there's only one Khaled. That's all I have to say.
Ahmed Lawan, the president of the Senate, has warned MultiChoice Nigeria against the proposed increase in the tariffs of its products. Lawan advised the company not to increase the tariff while the matter is being investigated. The Senate president said this while inaugurating a 7-member ad hoc committee headed by Senate Deputy Chief Whip Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi to look into the matter. He emphasized that foreign operators should not take Nigeria for granted. African giant Burna Boy is officially the first African act to sell out the Ziggo Dome in Amsterdam for his Space Drift Tour. Grammy Award winning superstar Burna Boy keeps setting the record as he becomes the first African act ever to sell out the 17,000 capacity Ziggo Dome in Amsterdam ahead of his Space Drift Tour in the Netherlands. The singer took to his social media platform to share the good news in a short GIF that had the event's flyer. The Space Drift Tour has been overly successful for the artist, as this is not the first time he is becoming the first African to act to sell out a location. The superstar sold out the Accra Arena in France and the O2 Academy. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, StVNg. You have been watching the news this week on Spectrum TV. I am Rachel David White. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.